Welcome, 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 everyone. We are so excited to have you here. I am Imani Robertson. I am the director of TGTW Clubs and really thrilled at the opportunity to have incredible panelists here. Also, joining on this call, I know that we have the co founders of Today's Girl, Tomorrow's Women. Would love to just shout them out. Marsha, Tara, could you say hello to
Who are these
everyone?
people?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tara Belvie, co-founder of Today's Girl, Tomorrow's Woman. So excited for you to be here today.
Incredible. And Marsha, we also have you on the call.
Yes. Welcome, welcome. We're delighted to have you. And I know you're in for a major treat.
Well, thank you, everyone. If this is your first session, we are so excited. There's so much more in store. If this isn't your first session and you really enjoyed some of the ones that have taken place, we have links that are going up on YouTube. If you want to share those, if you want to play them back, and that will be. I'm sorry, I think I hit mute. We are joined by dear friends of mine who are currently medical school students. And I would like to add that one of them just got off of doing her rounds in the psychiatric ward. So I'm really excited that she was able to join us. Kavita and Janyla, we'll start off with Kavita. Please introduce yourself. Tell them a bit about where you're from and where you went to college and where you're at for medical school.
Where was your postgraduate? That's all I'm asking because.
And everyone else, please be sure to have your mics muted. Kavita, do you want to kick it off?
Okay. Hi, I'm Kavita. I'm a first year medical student at Ohio State University. I grew up in New York, and I went to college at Carnegie Mellon.
Yes, and I'm so proud of her. A lot of you are in high school, and I'm proud to say that she and I met when we were 14 years old. So it's wonderful to see your friends' dreams come into fruition. And Janyla, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Janyla Seltzer. I'm a third-year medical student at Howard University College of Medicine. I am from New York. I was raised in Long Island, and I went to Cornell University for undergrad.
So this is exciting. I've also known Janyla for almost 10 years now, and we both are at graduate schools at the same university, and we went to college together. So one thing that's important is support, and we're going to get started. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Kavita, we'll start with you. I met you in high school. I remember your life in high school. Could you tell us a little bit about, what were some of the classes that you took that might have spoken to who you are and where you are right now? And then Janyla, will ask you the same question.
I went to Queens High School for the sciences. I had always been interested in doing something science related. And in high school, I took a lot of science heavy classes. So in addition to the required biology classes and chemistry and physics classes, when we got a chance to pick the classes that we wanted to take, I took AP chemistry and AP biology. Those two AP classes I was super interested in taking because I was always interested in doing something science related. And I would definitely recommend taking those if you can before going to college because they were a huge help for me in college. And in those classes, they were a lot more challenging than the regular high school biology and chemistry classes, but I enjoyed the challenge a lot, and that really cemented my decision to continue studying science in college.
Wow, I know it's a long road. Janyla, did you also try to take science focused courses in high school?
Yes, I did. So I did not take AP Chem, but I did take AP Biology. And I can agree that taking these courses do prepare you better. And so that when you do get to college, it's not such a shock when you're taking these rigorous science courses. If you're able to take AP Bio and AP Chem, or even AP Physics, if you're able to take any science course at a higher level, it'll help to prepare you for the rigor of undergrad sciences.
Well, I think speaking of that, and Janyla, that's a great transition into guidance and resources. As you think about preparing, what do you feel like you did to prepare for college in terms of guidance and resources during your high school curriculum? Because again, we do have a lot of ninth graders, 10th graders, 11th graders here with us today.
So I was very fortunate to have a very good guidance counselor at my school. One thing that I did not have the opportunity to do that in retrospect I would have loved to do is participate in different summer science programs geared towards high school students, and even scholarship programs. There's a lot that's out there for students interested in STEM and interested in medicine. And I don't think I explored those things. I was lucky to have a guidance counselor who, her son actually went to medical school. So me being interested in medicine at the time, she was able to guide me and show me where I should be applying to schools and things that I should focus on. But I think that those summer programs, some of the programs that I did as an undergrad, there was overlap with the high school programs, and just seeing the things that they were exposed to in high school made me wish I did that as a high school student.
So when you talk about certain programs, would you mind referencing specifically for those who are on the call who might not have great guidance counselors or even know of these opportunities?
So Mount Sinai has a program, because I know many of you are from New York. Mount Sinai has a great program. At least I've known of a program. I don't know how active it is now. And there's, I can't think of any specifically. I could look them up and you could reach out to me. But there are, I didn't do them, but I just know that when I was in undergrad, I would just wish that I had that opportunity.
Great. Kavita, we'll kick it over to you. Are there any summer programs or resources that you believe you utilized while a high school student?
So in high school, I knew that I wanted to go into something science related, but most of my guidance came from, I was part of a college bound program with Imani, and they were very law oriented. So I didn't really have, just like Janyla, I wish I had like done some of the high school science programs when I was in high school. But when I was in high school, I didn't know about any of them. But I think especially now there are tons of like programs, and like if you can get involved in research or like volunteering or shadowing. And I don't know of any at the top of my head, but I'm sure if you like Google like any high school programs, the AAMC also has a website. It's like everything med school related. You can find programs on there that are research related or like volunteer related. And you should definitely take advantage of using that website and finding those resources.
Oh, that's a wonderful website. Please definitely note that in the chat. Also, if any of you are paying attention to the chat during this discussion, you'll see that Tara is mentioning some of the resources that are available to students who are interested in pursuing a career in medicine. And also, we have Ms. Prasad, who's on in the chat, who's mentioned she participated in the Mount Sinai program that Janyla discussed. So she said they're very active and they're still doing programs, and I strongly encourage you all. Now, I know that Kavita and Janyla, we've discussed the things you weren't able to necessarily do in high school. What were you doing as extracurriculars in high school that may or may not have been med school related?
So in high school, I was on student council. And for me, there wasn't anything at my school that was science specific or medicine specific. I think just because the nature of that just being early in your educational career. But I was on student council. It just gave me a sense of leadership. And I think that translated well into the roles that I took on when I got to Cornell. And I was also on the yearbook. I did things that were fun, but also things that gave me skills and qualities that I would be able to apply when I got to undergrad. And at the time, I didn't know that I would be able to apply those things and be a leader at my undergrad institution. But um, I would say do things that you enjoy and do things that would you think may give you some qualities and skills that you can translate when you get to undergrad.
Well, I love that because I met the undergrad version of you. I didn't meet the high school version. I think you're a great leader. You became the president of one of our organizations. And I also love this idea of I know you both personally. You are not stuffy people. You are very lively individuals who are funny and enjoy life. And so I love this idea of remember, just because you're interested in medicine, or law, you can be a full human. Kavita, how about you? What did you do in high school other than legal outreach, which is the program that I met you in?
Yeah, so most of my high school extracurriculars actually revolved around legal outreach because my high school was new-ish, so there weren't that many clubs. But I did participate in our school started like a Model United Nations club, and I was part of that. And that was very helpful for supplementing, because in legal outreach, we had to do a lot of debates, which helped a lot with public speaking. And Model United Nations also like helped me a lot with public speaking, which was something that I struggled with a lot in high school and something that I'm still working on now. And I totally agree with Janyla. You should just pick extracurriculars that you're interested in because medicine requires such a wide variety of skills that no matter what you're doing, I'm sure you will learn something that can contribute to your medical education. So, public speaking, especially, we do like a lot of research and presentations on our research. So, learning those important like public speaking skills definitely helped me when I had to do presentations on my research in undergrad.
I love this because you both are talking about skills that are very transferable to anything you do. And there were a few other students, med school students, who would have joined us today, and they are doing presentations or in positions of leadership that kind of conflicted with their schedule. And so I love to see that you're able to use these skills that you honed in high school. But also, I think this is a great way to pivot into if you're busy in other organizations and you're a leader and you're working on developing your school skills, how do you have time to study and to manage your time? Because, like, how, when, where? I'll kick it off to Janela.
One thing I will say, your time you get less and less time as you go on wanting like in your path to medicine. So that time management is a skill that you are really going to have to hone in on. In high school and undergrad, I think you have to remember at all times your priority is always your academics, and you have to find balance around that. So I think that at the forefront of everything, you should always be prioritizing doing well because that's the main thing. When you're applying to college, they're looking at your scores first. When you're applying to med school, they're looking at your scores first. And it's unfortunate because the score doesn't define you. However, that's the reality. So you have to always prioritize your academics. If you can't balance, if you're having trouble balancing your academics and also extracurricular activities, find that one thing that you love. Find maybe two things. Don't try to do it all. And that's something when I got to undergrad and also med school, I picked two organizations that I focused on, that I loved, and I put my heart into. And you have to find your circle and lean on other people. But I say put school first and try to add one or two other things, but don't overdo it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear Kavita also comment on this. Folks, I just want to be very clear. Janyla and Kavita are two of the most disciplined people I know. Both have been incredibly successful in their academics um, and in their personal lives. So I'm still learning this and I'm listening as well. Janyla dropped some gems. How about you, Kavita? What do you think about studying and time management?
So time management is something you should definitely start learning how to do in high school, and studying as well. I think one of the most underrated skills is learning how to study, because I think when I was in high school, I didn't place enough emphasis on that. I would just like spend time like going through my notes, just like trying to memorize. I never fully developed study skills. And I think that is something that if I could go back and change, I would definitely do that. And I encourage you guys to learn like how you learn best and how to develop your study skills, because in college, the classes that you take, you will have like different professors who have different teaching styles. They'll have different ways of like
Go sit in the
creating
car?
their exams.
No. You sure?
And then the same thing in med school as well. We separate into like blocks, and you have like different leaders who are teaching the information very differently. And it's important to learn different methods of studying that are just as effective, that can be applied to every single block where you have a different leader. And when I started med school, which was only like a few months ago, I really struggled with the first few blocks because I hadn't really honed in and developed those study skills that I needed to. And your study skills are changing all the time. So it's important to learn yourself well and learn how you learn best, because it will become very important as you go on in your career. And medicine is a field where you're always taking tests. So learning how to study as early as possible is beneficial to you.
Well,
Um,
yeah, there's a question for you in the chat. Did you see that?
yes.
So and I guess this goes to both of you, what specific methods have worked best for you? I know Janyla kind of spoke to prioritization of, you know, task, academics being first, and you spoke to really just honing in on those skills. So could you both speak to what methods have worked best for you? Specifically, well, in high school, we can get into that a little bit more with college and med school, but in high school, what worked?
So in um, high school, like the later years of high school is when I started taking AP classes. That's when I started really trying to develop study skills. I think what worked best for me is in high school, note taking worked best for me. So going over the notes that I took in class and maybe like rewriting them so they like stay in my mind, rewriting them a few times. Active learning is always the best. So
What's that?
while you're like trying to memorize important information, you should ask yourself questions, or create questions for yourself at the end that can help you summarize everything that you're learning. Um, yeah, I think those two things were really important for me. And then with memorization, I think flashcards usually help me the best. So you're like going through the flashcards as often as you can, and you're seeing the information over and over again will help it stay in your mind longer. And that is also some methods that I am currently using in med school as well that I found have been effective.
Well, that's definitely great. Before we uh, move on to college, Janila, definitely want to hear your opinion on study skills as well. Kavita had mentioned flashcards, and I just would like to say to everyone, although I am not in medical school, it was a med school trick taught to me by Janila that has helped me in law school called Anki. So Janila, I don't know if you're going to mention that, but please speak to some specific methods for studying and then tell them about the med school secret.
So when the way I studied in high school is very different from the way I study now. I will say that the way you study is going to evolve over time. And in high school, I used study guides. I also did use flashcards. But one thing I will say, I think that you have to take a step back and think about what works for you. Are you a visual learner? Do you learn by listening and hearing things? Do you learn by writing things out? You have to figure out what works for you and then focus on using those things. And even like Kavita was saying, when she has to memorize something, flashcards work best for her. I have classmates who writing things down work best for them. So flashcards definitely work for me. They work for Kavita, but that's not necessarily what could work for you. I would encourage you all to figure out what it is that works for you. Maybe creating voice notes and listening to yourself, or finding an audio book that goes over the concepts for your class. You may even find a podcast for AP Bio. I'm not sure. They make all types of things these days. But I do think that you can figure out what actually works for you, try different things, and then use what works for you. I often go to my mentors in classes above me, even now, and I ask them what I should do to study for a particular class or to study for an exam. And I gather all the information that they all give me and I make my own plan. I don't, just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But I do think that flashcards are gold for me, at least. Watching videos and writing things down. I write things on a whiteboard. I'll put a topic at the top of the whiteboard and I'll just write until I'm done and I've given it my all. And then I'll fill in the blanks with a different marker so I know what parts of that concept I'm forgetting.
First I want to shout out that you have on a mask right now. Everyone, please wear them, stay safe. But prior to COVID's restrictions, when I would go to study with Janyla, I did witness her, write on the board, okay, these are the topics. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to come study with you. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and I don't want to stay on the topic of high school too long. I do want to get into the college process, but these are really quick questions. One of you can ask which one you're going to answer. First, I have how many AP classes do you recommend in your junior year? And the second question is, what were your strategies to effectively study for the SAT in high school, which I think would be a great transition into our last bullet point of applying to and choosing a college. So let's start with how many AP classes, if you both don't mind shooting out a number.
I took 3. I think 2
in
to
your
3
junior
would be
year
fine.
at one
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, I did. I took 3.
I didn't know that. Why?
Yeah. I don't know. I was just interested in all 3 and I took.
Did that
Yeah.
work out well? Full disclosure. I'm curious.
Yeah, it actually did.
Yeah.
Because I actually enjoyed the classes, so yeah.
I'm messing with you. I know it worked. But I mean, I think that's so Janyla, you shook your head. No. How many would you recommend for junior year?
I didn't take 3, but not that I don't think it's possible. My school just didn't offer that many AP classes. But I took 2. I took AP English and AP Bio, and I think 2 to 3 is I think that's appropriate, and I also think that it just prepares you for what's to come with college. When you get to college, you're going to be taking a certain number of credits. You're going to be taking a lot of rigorous courses, so that is going to prepare you well. So I don't think more than I don't think my AP classes were awful. So taking 3 isn't. I don't think it would be bad. That's just not what I did because my school didn't offer too many.
Really quickly, Kavita, what were the AP classes that you took?
I took AP Chemistry, AP US History, and AP English language.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that makes I just want to backtrack. We're all the same age, so we were in high school at the same time. And when I think back to that time, sometimes it's not how many AP classes. I think it's more so the combination. And you both did a really good combination with the classes. So really, just try to be mindful. Shanu, I know that you're who asked the question. Really focus on what your mix of classes. Like I personally wouldn't take AP Chem, AP Bio, and AP Physics at the same time. Um, but that's me, and I'm in law school. I would like to highlight that. So maybe the two of you would. What were effective strategies for studying for the SAT? And I'll combine that with how did you use studying for the SAT, your goals of becoming a doctor, and the realities of test scores and grades to go to college? And then that'll be a great segue. I'll
Okay.
start off with Janyla.
Okay. I'm just going to say I will have to step away and check in with my resident in a moment. So, but I will be back, but I am going to answer this question. So effective strategies for me, I just use books. Whatever the big book is, whatever the main book is, I don't remember that large one. Yeah, the SAT review that's like this thick. That's what I use, and I've always been very disciplined. So I just was disciplined, and I went through a certain amount of pages per day, and I focused on going through the things that I was struggling with. In terms of applying to college, I didn't outside of my guidance counselor, I didn't have much direction. I kind of just went with. I wasn't very fortunate to have much wherewithal and what to do and where to apply. But I applied to schools that had bio majors who I could see sent students to medical school before. And because you can see that on medical school websites. And I applied to a few colleges, and in terms of choosing a college, for me, I focused on location, financial aid packages, and I guess just my quality of life in the school. And funny enough, I did not think I would ever go to Cornell. When I first visited, it was freezing cold. It was rainy, but the second time I went, I was actually with Imani for diversity hosting, and it changed my mind. And so visiting colleges makes a very huge difference in where you choose to go. And I think that just weighing what's important to you. But what was important to me was location, financial aid, and also just my quality of life.
Well, I mean, other than those things, I'm glad that meeting me helped you choose. We want to thank you so much. We know you're going to step away for a second and you'll be back. Guys, this is the reality of her being, is it MS3? Is that what we call it?
Yes, MS3. So
Yeah.
I'm a third year.
Yeah, see, we say 3 L's, they say M3s. It's very confusing to me. All right, so Kavita, as Janyla prepares to go back to working with her resident, could you speak a bit to your preparation for the SATs and applying to colleges and what you kept in mind?
Yeah, so for the SAT, I was fortunate enough in the college bound program that Imani and I had, we had a prep class over the summer, which really helped me build a foundation for studying for the SAT. We did have to take the SAT at the end of the summer, and I didn't end up getting the score that I wanted, so I had to like change my study strategy after taking that course. For me, what worked for the second time, I always made sure every day to do at least one section. When I was done with all my homework and everything, I would make time and do one section in one of the subjects. So whether it was math, English, or writing, I would usually like go like Monday math, Tuesday writing, Wednesday ELA, and just like keep going like that. I know when we took it, our sections were like 20 minutes long, so it wasn't that bad. And I know now the sections are probably like an hour long, but I still think that if you can find like an hour in your day to at least take one section a day, I think that would be really helpful. Also, I would say take as many practice tests as you can.
Mm,
Practice tests are very, very, very helpful for
very.
any standardized test that you're going to take, including later on if you decide to take the MCAT. But yeah, the SAT, just buy those big books that Janyla was talking about and take as many practice tests as you can.
Yeah.
Um,
You know, I remember us studying for those, and there are some questions that are popping up in the group chat. So Kavita and I actually took the same prep course. And I know that she wasn't happy with the score she got, but I know it was higher than mine. And I remember her working really hard and us working on how do we change, because I know I took it 3 times. How many times did you take the SAT?
Twice.
Twice. Yeah, I took it 3 times. At some point I capped out. But someone asked, what was the most challenging section? And I'm curious to hear this because I know um, one of the differences in the realities of life is that some people are stronger in certain skills. I know one of our good friends, Alondra, she's in, law school, but she got a perfect score in the math section. For me, my highest score was not legal writing. Oh gosh. Okay, was writing, which translates into me being a good legal writing. What were your best sections or more challenging sections? And then someone said, how do you refrain from spending too much time studying for one thing?
Okay. So my best section was, I think I scored the same on math and writing.
Mm.
And those were my highest sections. And then I really struggled with English, um, like the reading comprehension portion of the SAT. Uh, yeah, and that is one section that I would just recommend you just keep practicing over and over again. Like the more sections that, if that is a section that you're struggling with, the
Right.
more practice sections that you do in reading comprehension, the better your score will get.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
in whichever one that you're the weakest in.
yeah,
You agree, yeah. Whichever section you're the weakest in. And someone asked, Kavita, how do you refrain from spending too much time studying for one thing? Like if you just naturally work slower, are there ways to improve your efficiency? So I do want you to answer that question, but I also want to say to speaking on studying on your weakest section, don't just sit there and then retake the section over and over. Figure out what you're getting wrong. And I say this as someone who's an okay standardized taker. I don't know about you. Are you a great standardized test taker? Do you
no,
figure
I
out?
don't think so.
Yeah. So how do you improve your efficiency? How do you refrain from spending too much time on something that you're clearly getting wrong?
So if it's something that I notice I'm really struggling with and I feel as if I'm spending too much time, but if it's like a really like high yield important topic, I would honestly just take the time to learn it. Like if you feel that you actually really need the time to like learn whatever topic is giving you problems, you should take some time, uh, learn, like go over the basic concepts and try to like understand um, the topic, go from like simple to like really challenging when you're like testing yourself on whatever topic is you're struggling with. Um, to be more efficient, if you find that you're still having problems with this topic, I would try to reach out to someone, maybe a teacher or like a friend who maybe has a strength in this one topic and can help you understand it better.
Oh, and free
Um,
resources. There are free online resources as well.
yeah, and I was just gonna say, I think Khan Academy,
Yes, he got.
like
I mean,
yes,
Sal got us through.
yes,
Right. I feel like I personally know Sal and his family.
yes,
Also the SAT offers like a question of the day, which I also
yes.
did. And I'm sure they have more resources, but someone has a question before we transition into our college discussion. Would you recommend taking the SAT this year when schools are making it optional?
Oh, I am not too well versed on this. I would say you should maybe talk to your advisor. Um,
We should actually answer this question with the what would Miss Cooper say? Miss Cooper would say,
yes.
Miss Cooper, who helped us apply to colleges, would tell you, take the SAT. Take the SAT because Kavita, am I correct? I believe we both not only took the SAT, but we also took SAT subject tests and we took the ACT.
ACT, yes.
And so to answer your question, Alyssa, the reason why you do that is it says, I'm desperate. I will take whatever test you want. But not only am I desperate, I am good, right? So the ACT for me, I think I did really, really well on in comparison to the SAT. And there are studies about this. I want you all to know as a diverse group, there are studies about how these standardized tests are, what's the word I'm looking for, Kavita? They systemically hold people back. And so take them, but don't, I would say do it because it's optional. And then if you have a great GPA, it won't hurt you. Do you see the next question? You want to take that, Kavita?
I would say the SAT is pretty similar to the ACT. I don't know if the ACT has changed, but I think there was just one additional science comprehension, like analysis kind of section where they give you a lot of questions on like tests and like graphs and like have you analyze and answer questions based on that. But otherwise, yeah, there's like a writing section, English section, and a math section. I think if you're studying for the SAT and you also want to take the ACT, like while you're studying for both those tests, they will both like supplement and help you with the other tests. So
That's true. I personally, I would like to say, Kavita, I think that the ACT is easier
okay.
for me, but
Mhm.
I also took the exam. I don't want to say how many years ago. So I actually don't remember how many years ago I took that exam.
More
I
than
think like 10,
yeah.
10, 11 years.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, definitely try them both. And what you think is more challenging might not be more challenging. But what's so great about them both is that you can supplement. So because I did better on the ACT, I was able to say, hey, look, I've taken the SAT 3 times. I've taken all these subject tests. And then where I might have been weaker on the SAT, I was actually strong on the ACT. So I think we'll transition that talking about student prep because I saw there was a question earlier presented by Amina who wanted to know a bit about, do you need to get into a pre-med program to get into med school? And how does the MCAT work? So before we do the MCAT question, I want us to focus on, do you need to be in a pre-med program to go to med school?
You do not. You can do whatever you want to get into med school. You can major in psychology. My roommate in med school actually majored in public policy. You can major in whatever you like, but you do have to take a certain number of required classes. Generally, it's the same for all med schools. It's like a year of biology, a year of chemistry, a year of physics, a semester of calc, I think, and a year of organic chemistry and a semester of biochemistry. So if you can find a way to like fit those in and then choose like whatever, if you want to do like a psychology major, if you're really into psychology. Some of my friends in undergrad they did engineering majors and then they also found a way to like fit in the required pre-med classes. So you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, there are psych majors who go to med school. There are all types of majors. I know for Janyla, she was in, I was in a sociology major and she was in the biology and sociology version of my major, which was very sociology focused. But Kavita, tell me if you agree with this statement. I have found that because she and I were in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Cornell, we were required to take science classes. So again, as a law school student, I have taken far more science classes than I would like to acknowledge. And part of that is because I was required to. So it was easy to, if I wanted to be pre-med, which I didn't, I could have because I was able to make room. Did your college require you to take classes that made meeting your med school requirement easier?
Yeah, so that's the one thing I would say.
the problem with like choosing a major like psychology or something is that the classes are not required. Whereas if you choose a biology major, basically all the classes you need to take for med school, they're all required anyway. So you will have taken all of them. So I think if you are very interested in like doing a biology major or something, you'll be set, like you don't have to worry about fulfilling all the requirements because they will have you take all those classes anyway. But if you do find yourself interested in like psychology or public policy and you are interested in that, but also interested in wanting to go to med school, then don't worry about it. You can definitely find a way to fit those things into your schedule and still do whatever major you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's interesting is I know a woman, just to give you all perspective, she is not uh, our age, and she's actually really accomplished. Janyla knows who I'm talking about. Shemaine Liebert. She was a Spanish major and a bio major, and she thoroughly enjoyed college. So, Janyla, welcome back. For those of you who are just joining us, you'll notice that Janyla is currently at the hospital doing her rotations, working with a resident. We are talking about choosing a major and classes and the requirements. Kavita just spoke to what classes you would recommend for. Do you need to get into a pre-med program to get into med school? And she had answered no. So we need to talk about, what was your major? I told them it was biology and sociology. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was a biology and society major.
Oh, yes.
I think that you don't necessarily need to do something science related when you're in undergrad. You need to have a science major. However, I think it does make things a little easier for you. I think that because a lot of the courses for my major align with the prerequisites for medical school, it made things easier, but it's not necessary at all. But you will have to take a lot of sciences as prerequisites for medical school.
Well, I think this is great. I think when we talk about prerequisites for medical school, a question that was in the chat is, does the college you attend alter your chances of getting into med school? And I think this is important because so many people think that you have to go to, an Ivy League or to a top 50 university to get into a great school. Now, you both, again, if you don't mind stating which colleges you went to, and the reality that that's not true. So if, Janyla or Kavita, whoever wants to jump in first.
Yeah, so I went to Carnegie Mellon for undergrad. The ranking of the college does not really matter. It all depends on, as Janyla had said earlier, your scores are the most important thing when you're applying to med school. So I think that's why, one of the reasons why they have the MCAT is to just compare students from all different kinds of colleges and majors. It's kind of like an equalizer. So yeah, you can go to any college you want and you can get into med school. No problem. Just make sure that you're like doing well in your classes and you do well on the MCAT.
So I think thinking about the fact that you did go to college, you had mentioned one that you had been thinking about med school since high school, and Janyla also said that. So could you speak to first, how did you know that you wanted to go to med school, especially by the time you were in college? And then was it harder transitioning into med school, or do you know it to be harder when people are non-science majors? And I would like to add, a lot of people we know say they're going to be doctors, go to college and quickly change their minds. So if you could speak to some of that.
Yeah, so I was always interested in medicine because, like I said, I was always interested in science. Like science was always my favorite subject, and science is the basis for all like medicine. You will be learning biology forever. And I was also interested growing up in the community that I did. I know a lot of people do not really rely on doctors and hospitals because they feel like the system is not able to help them. And I wanted to be someone that could help my community with any like health related issues. There's like one Caribbean doctor in my neighborhood that everyone like lines up outside her door because they feel most comfortable going to her because she understands them, like understands their culture. And that's something like I want to do for my own community, help them with those kinds of like health related issues. And yeah, that's a lot of the reason why I decided to do medicine and go into med school.
Well, I think you've just opened the door for a really important conversation, as a Black woman, as a woman of color, as a woman, period. Um, what did it mean for you to decide that you wanted to go to med school, other than just helping your community, but specifically in terms of the process? Did you feel like you received guidance and resources? I know often you went to Carnegie Mellon, a phenomenal school. If any of you watch This Is Us, that's the school that Randall and Beth went to. um, you know, what does that mean to have a dream, but were you supported in that dream?
So it was definitely very difficult because also in addition to like being like a woman of color, I'm also like a first generation college student, which I think is it's super hard because mostly everyone you will meet in med school, they'll be like, yeah, my parent was a doctor, like I have a family member who's the doctor. Um, and like they will have like all that support and knowledge and guidance from those people in their lives. Me, when I started college, like I knew I wanted to go to med school. I didn't really know anything about the process. I didn't know anything about like the classes I had to take, like what extracurriculars would really like help me when I was applying to med school. I didn't really know anything about the MCAT. So definitely like being in Carnegie Mellon, we had a good like pre-med office, so they did offer a lot of guidance, but even still, I felt like I did have to like work and do a lot of my own research to find out a lot of these things that some of my peers already knew from like having a lot of like family members in medicine and people in their lives who had already gone to med school and could like guide them through the process.
Yeah, and I mean, like when you were applying to colleges and when you were in high school, your family couldn't help you, right? And
Yeah.
I know we went through that together, right? But
Mhm.
also, especially being a first generation student here, like there are just boundaries. You know, people will never understand when you're either first gen, you know, here or first gen in college, the struggle that comes with financial aid. I mean, just it's like trying to tell your parents that the government wants their financial information, which they already have, is very confusing. Janila, could you speak to what it meant to be a Black woman, a woman of color, and a woman, period, saying in high school, hey, I want to be a doctor, and telling your guidance counselors that? Did they give you resources? Did you have resources? Just shameless plug, I know you were one of the top leaders of the is it in sorry, I don't want to jack this up, so go ahead, you can speak to it.
I think you're gonna say SNMA. No, maybe. Okay. So in terms of once I got to prior to college, I think that I had no direction whatsoever in terms of applying to college, where to go, um, where it's best to go if you want to be a doctor. I really had no direction whatsoever. I was lucky to have a guidance counselor whose son went to medical school, and she gave me some guidance, but I didn't have resources when I was in high school. I was very fortunate though at Cornell to have the support system. Cornell has an amazing pre-med support system. There's the Office of Academic and Diversity Initiatives, and they have very specific programs for pre-med students. So they were giving me funding for unpaid summer opportunities. They were connecting me with doctors, giving me opportunities for shadowing experiences. A lot of my peers, even in medical school or that I just would meet along the way that are interested in medicine, a lot of people had the opportunity to shadow as a high school student and to know what it takes to get to college and medical school and know how to prepare themselves, and knew from day one when they got to college that they need to be shadowing. They need a certain number of hours of shadowing. They knew that they needed to prepare for the MCAT. They knew what they needed to do because they've seen people do it before. And I think that was definitely a struggle for me in high school. And it took some adjusting once I did get to Cornell. However, you really have to tap into specific organizations for minority students interested in medicine. And I think at Cornell, the program was called P3, and
Look at that.
she did. But there were a bunch of programs and opportunities at Cornell that allowed me to grow. That program also sent me to the AMEC. It is the annual medical education conference that's done by Student National Medical Association, which is SNMA. If you guys have never heard of it, it is an organization that focuses on basically pipelining minorities into medicine. And being able to go there as an undergraduate student with the support of my university, it changed a lot for me. It gave me my first year summer internship, my research position, because it's a conference where you are surrounded by hundreds, probably thousands of pre-med students, sometimes even high school students, and you get to see people that look like you. You get to see people that have done it. You see people at every stage of it. You see medical students, you see residents, you see doctors who have been practicing for many, many years. So I think there's something special about seeing it, and then also making your connections and getting to know these people, getting to know programs. I made a connection with someone who's on admissions at a medical school, and she ran through my whole medical school application with me. She taught me how to make a complete story with all the different components of my application, and I met her at that conference. So I think that just finding organizations, I think there are so many well, not so many, but there are organizations that really focus on getting minority students into medicine and giving them the resources to do that. So I think it was definitely a struggle for me as a high school student, but I was fortunate in undergrad.
Yeah, and I think one thing we can talk about with extracurriculars and resources is, I know people are asking, does it matter which college you go to? And, listen, people go to different colleges for many different reasons. Sometimes it's a location thing. Sometimes it's a financial circumstances thing. Sometimes it's a matter of your status here in this country. And many of us can speak to friends we knew who were more than qualified to be at top universities, but there were conflicts around their status as students. So one thing, though, I think we do want to highlight is, regardless of what college you do go to, pay attention to the resources that they have. I think that's really the question we're getting at, right? Really, when people apply to these big name schools, they're really just applying for the access, the network that you're having access to, and the resources. And so I would say you can find that anywhere if you tap into what they have to offer. I know that there are some wonderful careers and career services at some of New York's community colleges and SUNYs, especially if I'm correct, and Kavita and Janyla, please correct me. SUNY Downstate, I believe, is one of the best medical schools. So if you go to SUNY Downstate, I'm sure that there are some resources for you, kind of that'll make that process easier. What I do want to speak to, though, is could you both comment on, oh, and one more thing. If there isn't an organization for what you want to do, create it. One of mine and Janyla's closest friends, even at Cornell, created what is it, the Pre-Med Society? PM, can you correct me? And by the way, I was talking about BBMTA, Janyla.
Yeah, yeah. So our BBMCA, we operated as an SNMA chapter. So,
Okay.
well, we operated as a MAPS chapter, which is the undergrad version of what we call in medical school SNMA.
Okay.
But our friend, she started a mentorship program specifically for people interested in medicine. So you would have a mentor that is on the path that you want to be on.
Great. Because someone asked a question that, listen, I always have. How does the MCAT work? And I would like to follow up. How do you study for the MCAT and college? You both took time off. So go.
So studying for the MCAT, I think that one, doing well in your science courses in undergrad makes a big difference for how the foundation that you have for studying for the MCAT. I would say that I I did not study for the MCAT as long as I probably should have. I studied for a few weeks over the winter break and took it. But I do, in retrospect, wish I studied throughout that semester. I think if I spent the semester being disciplined and creating a game plan so that when the winter break or the summer break that you decide to take the MCAT, you can hone in on things for a certain number of weeks. I know a lot of people study for about 6 weeks, and it's intense studying because when you get to medical school, you have to take step one. And I haven't studied, that was the most I ever studied in my entire life. I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Well, I started studying at 8 o'clock in the morning and I finished at midnight every single day. And I think all of these tests you have to take are just preparing you for the tests you're going to continue to have to take in medicine. One thing I will say, when you take your MCAT, you essentially have to take your MCAT the year before you want to matriculate. So matriculate means the year before you want to start medical school. So if you want to start medical school in the summer of 2022, you need to have taken your MCAT in the summer of 2021, or at least by the summer of 2021, because you want to get your application in as early as possible. So you want to have taken your test and had your score the year in advance. Imani did also speak to the fact that we both took time off. I don't know if you wanted me to go into that or you wanted to talk about that later, Imani. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, you can definitely mention that now. I know we're rounding up on 5:30, so you can actually speak to taking time off. Then we'll go back to Kavita to have her speak about what is the MCAT. Oh no.
I do see a quick question that can you retake the MCAT? Yes, you can. I actually took it twice,
Okay.
but yes, you can retake the MCAT.
And it also plays into you taking time off, right?
Yes. So I took time off because I didn't take my MCAT until I was a senior in college. So that following year, you're essentially applying to medical school for an entire year between submitting your applications and interviewing. So that whole following year, after I graduated, I had to find something to do. And I think taking a gap year for me personally was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I think coming to Howard is probably one of the best decisions, probably the best decision I've ever made. But taking a gap year allowed me time to breathe, allowed me time to work, and I guess just to experience the real world a little bit. I only took 1 year, and I worked at Weill Cornell Imaging, which is radiology in New York City. And it allowed me to experience medicine. And it solidified my decision to want to go into medicine and the things that interest me. And it also gave me time to travel. And it gave me time to breathe after college and mentally prepare for medical school. And I think gap years do different. Some people take gap years because they need to pick up their MCAT score. They need to get a master's so that they can show, wow, the light went off, I'm sorry. But so that they can show that they have the potential to do well as a student.
Kavita, could you also speak to that? I know you took time off as well. So you talk about preparing for the MCAT. What made you decide to take the time off? And then we'll wrap up with some of the questions in the chat, just to be mindful of everyone's time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I also took the MCAT for the first time. I retook it as well. I took it for the first time my senior year of college. And the MCAT is an exam. They say to treat it like a full-time job. You should definitely be dedicating like at least 6 to 8 weeks where you're studying from like 8 to 5, 8 to 6. Because there is a lot of information to learn. And the first time I took it, I definitely didn't put in that much time as I should have, and I didn't get the score that I wanted. So yeah, definitely the second time I studied for the MCAT, it's super important to put in the time to learn all the information you need to learn. And as I said before, like with the SAT, practice exams are super important when you're preparing for the MCAT, especially because the MCAT is an 8-hour exam, and that was something that took some time to get used to. There's like 4 sections with like biology, chemistry, physics. There's like a reading comprehension section and like a psychology section. There's a lot of information you need to learn, but you should definitely take the time to study seriously because the way you're studying for the MCAT will be very similar to the way you're studying in med school. Because med school is like a full-time job as well. You're studying from 8 in the morning to like until you go to sleep because there's so much information to learn. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, oh yeah, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna talk about the gap years. I took 3 gap years. So during the first year, I started scribing at Mount Sinai, which was an amazing experience for me because I got a chance to shadow in the emergency room and follow doctors around, see what they do, how they chart, how they think, what they order, like labs, x-rays. And the emergency room is a great place to learn because you see all different kinds of things. You get to see a little bit of OB-GYN, a little bit of orthopedics. You get to see like a wide variety of cases. And then during my gap years, I also did a year of AmeriCorps where I volunteered at a clinic in my community. So something that I talked about earlier was that I was very interested in being a doctor, like coming back to my own community and helping. So something that I did with AmeriCorps was work at a clinic to help patients enroll in insurance because a lot of patients around here don't have insurance. And we gave them like free eye exams for diabetic patients. Uh, we started like a reading program for kids in the clinic, like giving books at wellness visits so that parents can start early literacy. And yeah, that's what I did during my gap years. And I would definitely recommend taking a gap year just to do and get more experience in the medical field and just like take a break because applying to med school also takes a really long time. It takes a whole year and you're like traveling for interviews. So just like having a little break, taking like a year or 2 or even 3 definitely helps like when you're applying to med school.
I just want to thank you both because I am in law school currently reconsidering my decision because you guys both make the path to med school seem really interesting. But then again, this was a very long path, so maybe I'll stick with what I'm doing. I want to thank you both for joining us today. If you both are willing, would you mind sticking around and answer some questions? I know that everyone else, feel free to log off. This information will be shared with you. There are some upcoming sessions. Our next session is taking place on January 15th. It's the art of education. So if you have friends who are interested, let them know. You can follow our social media page for more updates. But there are some really interesting questions if you both don't mind just scrolling back in the chat. I mean, also, Kavita, if we were Twitter, you would have 8 hours trending. You mentioned 8 hours, and everyone started asking, 8 hours, 8 hours, what? And so, if you both wouldn't mind to stick around, if you're busy, Janyla, you have been quite busy today, and you still chose to stick around. Thank you so much. Going in and out with her resident. Kavita has her 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. schedule. I don't know how you guys do it. So we'll stick around for no more than 6 more minutes because I am in law school and my semester has started and I have to get back to studying. So I'll just scroll back. But again, any parting thoughts, best advice that you would like to give to the 50 participants who are still here? Janyla and then Kavita.
I guess parting advice, I would say get as much exposure as you possibly can. The path to medical school is not an easy one. It only gets harder, and I think that you have to really be sure, and the only way you're going to really be sure about medicine is getting exposure. And I know that that can be a challenge, but get as much exposure as you want and truly do not give up. There are plenty of instances where I was told to give up. Don't let a score define you. Don't let one mentor telling you that medicine's not a good idea or that's going to be hard for you. Don't let anyone, if you are sure about medicine and you know what you like, or even if you're not sure, but you know this is a path that you're considering, don't let anyone stop you from considering that or get you down on that.
And Kavita, I mean, Janyla, that was wonderful. Kavita, what are your thoughts? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Janyla, especially about not giving up. That in medicine, sometimes I feel like people are afraid of like using the word failure. There's definitely a stigma behind it, but it happens so often, and it's something that you will definitely experience sometime along the way if you're deciding to do medicine. I've definitely seen my own like fair share of failures, and I'm still here in med school. And if it's a dream of yours, like me, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I just like keep working at it, and you will get to where you want to be.
No, that's wonderful. I think there are some lessons for me in this. So thank you both for speaking to that. I think uh, anyone who's on this call, the fear of failure is real. Uh, Not to put us on blast, but we're all 25 years old. And I think that is still something we're working through. And you will have to keep working through it, but it's something you can also push through. There are some great questions here. Again, I want to thank you both for your time. Some of the questions are, is going to medical school the same as going to a nursing program? I think that's huge because I have a lot of mentees who want to go into nursing. They've been adamant about that. We have some folks here who are probably going to go into NYU's, school one day, their nursing school. Could you both speak to that and choosing, not to do that? There are questions here. Again, just look at the chat. There are some great questions. If there's one or two particularly that you would like to ask, and if you're still around, feel free to. We have well over 40 people who are still here, so drop a question and see if our panelists will be so gracious to pick one. If you see anything you like, Janyla or Kavita, please feel free to answer any of them.
I guess to answer the question, is going to medical school the same as going to a nursing program? It's not. They're not the same in many different ways. I think the rigor of the process is very different. The things that you have to prepare for, the prerequisites, there is some overlap, but in terms of preparing for medical school and nursing school is very different. I also think that the role of a medical doctor is very different from the role of a nurse. And I guess you have to think about what you want your role to be. I think that the nurses spend a lot of time with the patient. They know the nurses a lot a lot of the patients know nurses better than they know their actual doctors. But for me, I knew I wanted to be a doctor because I wanted to be challenged to think about different diagnoses and think about how we want to treat, as opposed to a nurse. You're giving treatment and you're caring for the patient and catering to the patient, but I wanted to care and cater to the patient in a different way. So it really would have, choosing between medical school and nursing school really is definitely a personal decision. But that's my take on why I chose to pursue medicine.
Well, I'm glad you did. Remember, I got to be your fake patient for the day. That was awesome. Before Kavita picks her question, Kavita, Janyla, someone asked, do you guys watch Grey's Anatomy?
Yes, I love Grey's. I watch The Resident. I watch it all, actually.
Kavita, is there a question you'd like to answer before we log off? Also, for the 40 plus of you who are still here, the co-founder of TGTW has dropped in the chat any information. You can receive a small token of appreciation for attending and staying the entire time and being engaged. Kavita, is there a question you would like to answer?
Yeah, someone said, how do you get shadowing opportunities?
Yes.
It is a little difficult when you're in high school and sometimes in college to get shadowing opportunities, but I would just recommend reaching out to as many physicians as you can. If you can like send an email. I know in college, my pre-med advisor had like a preceptorship program where he would match us with a doctor at a nearby hospital, and that allowed us to get some shadowing hours. Even like myself, when I'm going to visit the doctor at the doctor's office, I see like there are kids following the doctor like while he's treating me. So maybe you can even like contact your own doctor and ask if you can like shadow him in the office, him or her in the office like for a day. And usually they're very like receptive to that because they want people to learn more about what they do.
Well, this is great. There are so many other questions, and we don't have time for that because life is busy. But I do want to ask Janyla, Kavita, would you both mind dropping your email addresses in the general chat to everyone? Would you be willing for us to share your information? Because I think you both have a wealth of wisdom and experience.
Yes, I will put my email in the chat.
Thank you, thank you,
I
thank
will
you.
put my email as well.
This was great. I enjoyed this. It was a breath of fresh air, honestly, to talk about something other than what I do. You guys both, you didn't have the chance to speak to the fact, I know that, Janyla, you want to go into dermatology. You're going into dermatology. Kavita didn't get to speak to what she's particularly interested in. We know she wants to serve her community. So I have lots of questions for them, but please email them, take advantage of the information that they're giving you. And again, thank you so much on behalf of TGTW and to all of the people who stuck around. You were an incredible audience. Everyone, enjoy your weekend.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
And if I were any of
too.
you, I'd be sure to ask them if you can shadow them one day. Thank you, our future Dr. Seltzer and our future Dr. Ramnath. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.